welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Amber Boyd. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm also a bariatric patient, as well as a podcast host. Clearly, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm an author as well. So I created a journal/workbook that's available now on Amazon to support bariatric patients in their pre-op journey. It allows you to kind of explore your why, discuss your support system, what are some things that you'll need along the journey, and I hope that it's helpful to those who are starting their journey. And even if you need to revisit what your why is, you can find that journal/workbook easily accessible to you as well. I created that journal/workbook 2 days post-op. I was sitting in a nutrition meeting and recognized that we had some things that we had not talked about during those sessions. And getting my surgery in Mexico, I didn't have some of the support system that was set up in some of the hospital programs and programs that are outside of hospital settings. And so I wanted to develop a book that could help develop and talk about the biopsychosocial perspective of bariatric surgery. And so in my last video, I spoke about the biopsychosocial perspective of bariatric surgery. And today I want to talk about my own personal journey with bariatric surgery and mental health. I want to talk about my own journey with mental health and it be a vulnerable moment, because I want to recognize that even therapists, even folks who have been doing this journey and this process for a little while, can still be plagued by and impacted by like mental health and concerns that come up, symptoms that, they show themselves, you experience them, and then your eating, your experience with your body, those things get impacted too. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss was even how my depressive symptoms show up. So my depressive symptoms look like when you're feeling out of control, right? And you're looking for any and everything to like control so that you don't necessarily deal with the feelings or surrendering to them. I'm one of those people like, oh, I should know how to take care of this. I just need to push through. And a push through is not always the best answer to the scenario. Sometimes it's really stopping in your tracks and processing through what's happening in the moment. And I know that as a therapist and as a bariatric patient, we don't always feel like we have time to do that. But if you don't make time, your body, your emotions, they will make their own time. So it's really important to think about as you're going through this process, and even me as I'm looking at my own like ways that I've been dealing or not dealing, things coming up and I'm trying to process them or avoid them, and it comes out in the way that I treat myself and my body. It also feels like when you're falling and you're trying to grab, like, how you're trying to stop yourself from falling, you end up hurting yourself even further. That is my feeling when I don't surrender. When I don't allow for the feelings to have a lot of space and to name them, I feel like I'm grasping at straws and I'm trying to find anything to stop me from actually having to do the work of that. And because it's heavy, it takes time, it takes a lot of energy. And I don't always feel like I have that. So I'm repeating myself, but I want to emphasize that it's important to make time for the things that feel really challenging. So my experience with my depressive symptoms, they came out in me like overeating. They came out in me like drinking, like using alcohol to numb the feelings that were occurring. It was me using a smile, pretty much disregarding how I was actually feeling so that I could perform. And I don't love that aspect of my own personality, because I know that sometimes that can be a thing that feels like a deterrent from actually being that version of myself. So I know that I can just kind of, we got to move through to get through, right? Or we just need to get through it. And I really try to tell my clients, and I try to tell myself as well, that we don't move around the problem. The problem will be there. You have to move through it, okay? So I tell myself in this process that I should do better because I know better. And it's one thing to know better, and it's another to give yourself grace to do better. So I want to emphasize that as well. It's one thing to know better, And it's another to give yourself grace to do better. So even as a therapist, I have to remind myself on a consistent basis that I'm human first. I love to be a person that like has the answers and knows what to do and has like the process down packed, but I don't. I'm human. And so even though I might know it logically, emotionally and mentally, that I don't always have the full answer. And so allowing myself to sit with what is it that I need in that moment. And I want to encourage, especially as bariatric patients, when food and exercise and things like that can be used as both a reward system, a punishment, trying to binge and restrict, those things can be like such a hard spot to be in. Because when I use food, I use it as a means to, like, when I become rebellious, it's almost like a teenager that I'm not going to deal with that thing. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to eat how I want to eat. And my pouch is like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Not only that, like, my pouch can only take so much at a time anyway, right? I can only eat so much. But the one thing that it will do, like, the body will collect, right? So not only is it food, but it's also energy. So when the energy is suppressed in the body, it feels like it expands the body because it needs room to live, right? So in a 2-week span, I gained 13 pounds. That is not an easy feat. That lets me know that not only was I eating in ways that was like from my past, I also was harboring all of these emotions in my body, and it was just storing them. And so within this time between then and now, I've lost about 10 of it, at least from the last time that I weighed myself. And I was like, oh, that was a lesson learned for sure, that I have to allow myself to surrender to the feelings and make space for them. Otherwise, it'll make space in my body. Okay. So I want to talk about my saving grace. I was able to do a guided meditation. Now, let me tell you how I avoided doing guided meditations, because I knew that it was going to open a floodgate. And with that, when I allowed myself to have it, all of the emotions, I felt so much lighter being able to give myself permission to be present in the moment. And I know it sounds super woo-woo and it sounds so silly to some, but those who have utilized meditation in the past, I know that it can be something that really does release some of those emotions. And so I want to make space for Insight Timer, Headspace, Calm. Like, there's so many different apps that can support you. Even YouTube can support you in finding some guided meditations that speak directly to the experience that you're having. So when it talked about letting go, I was like, see, this is why I didn't want to do this. But I'm so glad that I did. And the other thing is, I reached out to a friend. I know that I sometimes punish myself in isolation. So one of the podcasts that I recently did was called Punishing Yourself with Isolation. And I was doing that to myself as well. So it was not just a moment of like me just saying the words. It was like, I also talk about this in my work, right? So I made sure that I did not do what I've done in the past, which is take this on by myself. So I called my best friend. I also reached out to my therapist. I talked to my accountability, like my business accountability partners, to be able to honor and name what was going on for me. And everybody gave me such amazing feedback, encouragement, made space for me and the things that I was holding, that I was able to feel so much lighter and freer. And so I want to encourage that if you have folks in your support system that you can lean on, tap into those folks. You know, I think sometimes we don't do it because we feel like we don't want to be a burden, but I think that we have to take away the idea that needing someone equates to being a burden, because I don't think those two things are the same. I also focused on what I could control at that time. And so for me, I knew that it had to go back to portion control, because I was eating more than my system would allow. I was also eating like in restaurants, and I was going to bars, and I was like, you know, trying to be outside, as they say. And I think that there was a moment when I was like, you have to eat at home. And so I've been trying to cook more meals. I've been trying to weigh out my food. I know that some folks are like, that's not what they do. I respect that. It's not even something I like to do, but I know that it's helpful for me to get back to where I want to go. Increasing my water, make sure I'm taking my vitamins, and also increasing rest. I've been very diligent about, like, when my body says stop, to actually allow it to stop versus trying to push myself to go further anyway. I think some of the other things that you can do that maybe it's not something I've done, but I know that yoga is really helpful. Sometimes it can release the physical things that are happening in your body. So not only from an emotional, spiritual, mental space, but also a physical space. I'm a personal workout fan. So I really love group classes. I do strength training. I do body pump. I do a little Zumba. I actually really love Zumba, and I love to take a walk. Sometimes it's just being outside and getting some good fresh air, but water is key as well. So water, vitamins, portion controlling, making sure that you have what you need, like the essentials, so that you can replenish in the spaces that you don't always feel at your best. So this was my experience in a recent concern about my mental health and my bariatric journey happening at the same time, where when I wasn't in a good mental state, my body really paid for it. So I think it's really being cognizant of how these things are so incredibly intertwined, and we will sometimes punish ourselves and it makes it worse, and you hold on to these things and they really store in the body. Make sure that you're allowing time to release, that you give some surrendering to what's happening, and that you make space to heal. Tap into the connections and the community that you have. And if you don't have community, come to the TikTok community, because it's a lot of us that want to support. I definitely, want to make sure that folks know that they have people that are out here that are doing it. So even as a therapist, even as a bariatric patient that's almost 2 years out, I'm still having these learning moments, these learning journeys, that none of this stops. I'm consistently learning more about myself and how I'm processing or not processing things. So I hope that this is helpful, to those of us that are new, and to those of us who are seasoned, that learning never stops in this journey. So know that I'm here. If you have questions, feel free to hit me up. I am open. I'm an open book. And if you have a chance, also listen to my podcast, Moments of Authenticity. You might get some gems there as well. I hope you have a good one, and I hope to see you back soon. Bye.